All right, we're live. What's going on, everybody? Got a couple people filtering in. We're just getting ready to get started here, so bear with us a second. Just pulling everything up. Oh, I should pull up the thing that records audio,
That would help.
huh? Imagine that, getting halfway through the show and realize that I didn't record my audio. That would be fun.
I should pull it up too now that I think about it.
We're good at this. Watching Voyager? Is it like Star Trek Voyager? All right. Nice. Seems appropriate while watching Star Wars podcasts. Just let me know when you're ready with your audio, and we'll get it underway.
Ready when you are.
All right. So we'll do the normal 1, 2, 3. Start recording, and then wait a couple seconds. All right. Start in 3, 2, 1, go. All right. What's up, everyone, and welcome to episode 104 of the Sons of Mandalore podcast. Oops. See, this is the benefit of getting to watch it live, guys. You get to see us screw up.
I didn't screw anything up. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, you get to see me screw up. So we're going to start that over. So I'm thinking about, what's on the level of good idea to way too cheesy? What do you think about starting with, like, greetings, fellow Mandalorians, or just saying, hey, everybody?
That's pretty
It
cheesy.
is pretty cheesy. I'm pretty cheesy. That's why I thought of
That
it.
is very true. So, I mean, if you want to roll with it, go
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna put this here, so I don't have to look all the way. Yugget says embrace. Am I pronouncing your name, by the way? Yugget? Yugget? I just kind of.
Could you type out phonetically how you spell your name in the chat for us?
I don't have to worry about it when I'm typing in Discord. All right. Zutyug. Oh, right. You switch it for Twitch, right? Am I crazy? On the Knights of Ren, it's Yugget. It's with the Y's first, right? Yeah. Yugsit. All right. Let's do this. I'm gonna embrace the cheese. Greetings, fellow Mandalorians, and welcome to episode 104 of the Sons of Mandalore podcast. My name is Brian, also known as Cruisin', and I'm here as always with my co-host Jimmy DeHaan. How you doing tonight?
Doing great. Very excited and very pleased that we just happen to be recording on the day that uh, new set announcement
I
dropped.
know FFG's just throwing a wrench, and I had like a whole show planned out. I wanted to talk about, store championships and tournaments and play testing and all this stuff, and it's all out the window. If you aren't aware, we got a spoiler article for the next set coming out in November. FFG posted an article today with a bunch of card spoilers and all kinds of fun stuff, including some descriptions of things that they didn't spoil, but they're going to talk about soon. So we're going to talk about all that tonight. So stick around for that for sure. But before we jump into it, I just want to get a couple logistics things out of the way. So I want to start by saying, excuse me, sorry, I got sidetracked there. I want to start by thanking everyone. If you hadn't noticed, but last week we put up a post on our Facebook page. We just started a Patreon page to help support the show and kind of help us improve some things like our mic quality, all that kind of stuff. And we got our first Patreon subscriber this past week, so I want to give a shout out to Bobby Sapphire over at the Hyperloops. Thank you very much for your support. It's been it means a lot to us. And if you don't know the Hyperloops, definitely go check them out. They have a ton of good content over there. So especially if you're looking to get into the competitive side of the game, they are they're great players and you can learn a lot from them. So check them out. Thanks, Bobby, for the support. And also, I just want to give a shout out to TopDeckTCG.com for sponsoring this episode. You can find all sorts of Destiny content, including all of our podcast episodes and YouTube videos and such, over on their website. They kind of consolidate all of the major content creators into one place. So thanks to them, and be sure to go check them out. And one final thing before we get into the main part of the episode, um, we are about to do our first giveaway. So right now there is a post up on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Sons of Mandalore, where we have two custom handmade 3D battlefields that were donated to us by Mike, who was a listener we met at our store championship in Birmingham, Alabama last weekend. These things are awesome. They're like, so there's a main plaza and there is a, what's the other one? Comms tower.
Comms tower, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what he did was he took like an X-Acto knife and he cut out certain parts of the battlefield, and then he put it on a raised piece of foam to make it 3D, and it pops out, and they put it in this case. So it's hard to describe. You got to see the pictures. I'm going to put up the pictures real quick on the stream. So that's the comms tower. You can see them on our Facebook page as well, of course. And of course, the pictures don't really do them much justice, but it gives you a good idea anyway. So we're going to be doing a giveaway for those. So be sure to check out that. And so if you want to enter, there's a couple ways you can do that. All you have to do is like our page on Facebook. You can do any of the four of these things, and each one gets you a entry into the giveaway. So like our page on Facebook, leave us a review on Facebook, leave us a review on iTunes, or follow us here on Twitch at twitch.tv/Sons of Mandalore. Any of those gets you an entry. You can get up to 4 entries, and then we're going to be doing the drawing in a couple of weeks right after I get back from Gen Con. So be sure to do those. If you've already done all of those things, you don't have to worry about it. You're already entered. So, all right, that's that. Let's get all that out of the way. Let's get into the meat of it. So before we get into spoilers, let's talk really quick about the store championship we went to this weekend. You know, Gen Con's around the corner, so I'm starting to kind of ramp up my play testing. I'm going to be doing a lot of it over the next couple weeks as I prepare. And so we went to a store championship, like I said, in Birmingham last weekend. There were four of us, right? Four of us that came from our local area. We had a great time. There's a 28 people.
28, so yeah.
28 players, yeah, which is really good size for a store championship. So I was happy to see that. I brought Thrawn and Snoke. It's a deck I've been playing a lot on TTS. I posted the list in an article on our website a week or so before I went. I made a couple tweaks from that list, and I'm still tweaking with it. I'm not sure that it's something that I'm going to want to take to Gen Con, but it's a really fun deck, and I love Thrawn. I went 3-2 with it, so not my greatest showing, but respectable. Let's see. What about you, Jimmy? You want to talk a little bit about how you did or how it went?
Yeah, it was a really fun tournament. Great people, good sportsmanship. The shop was awesome. It's a little hot in there because it was like 100 degrees outside all day long. But
Yeah. Yes,
once they set up those box fans in there, it was pretty good.
That's certainly
but
helped.
I personally ran a fun deck that I had been playing around with a little bit. It was Elite New Luke 3, and Elite Maz Kanata with the Built to Last plot. Mm-hmm. Everything but a couple of Ancients and a couple of Chance Cubes were all unique upgrades. Yep. The idea was to just, get a lot of value and ramp out of those. It did pretty good. I went 3-2 on the day. Lost a mirror matchup, and I got trucked by a Snoke CAD deck.
Yep.
which I'm coming to find out puts out a lot of damage pretty quick.
I've heard that deck's pretty good.
Yeah, it did 10 damage to me round one.
Yeah,
It
it can do that.
it was
Yeah.
gross.
Yeah, but I mean, Luke, when you get like 5 upgrades on him, is just absurd. So we actually got matched up in the first round. It became kind of a joke. The first round, I got matched up with Justin, and then he won that game. It was actually a nail biter game too. And then
Was it? Was it?
yeah, if I remember correctly, you had like 2 health left at the end of the game. In
I
my
don't know.
yeah. And then second round, I got paired up with one of the other guys that we traveled with. So such is the danger of taking group to a store championship, I suppose. But um, yeah, anyway, it was a lot of fun. But what we do want to talk about from this tournament was the finals. So the final 2 decks that made it to the end were the eventual winner was a Elite Rose, regular Wedge, and hired gun vehicle deck that ran the crate speeders and you know all of the normal vehicle package. And then the other finalist was a Yoda Cassian Profitable Connections mill deck. And this is a funny story. I had been working on this particular deck for a week or so. I'd played it a little bit on TTS. I brought it to our local play night once, and then I think the Wednesday before the store championship, I was playing some games on TTS with my friend Aaron, who ended up taking the deck. We we played a couple games. I like crushed him once or twice with it, and then we had another one that was relatively close, and he asked to try it, and he um, was doing really well with it. So he just kind of decided last minute to give it a shot, and he went 5-0 through Swiss. He two won 2-1. He went 2-1 in the semifinals against a Po 2 Cassian deck, and then he lost in the finals to that vehicle deck, of course. But overall, the deck went really well. We had a couple people ask on Facebook to share the list, so we're going to talk about it here, and then I'm going to use that as a segue to talk about I want to talk about mill in general, especially Way of the Force mill. So let me pull up the list real quick. So let's see here. There it is. So here's the list. For those of you listening, I'm going to read through it real quick. It's, of course, Yoda, Cassian, and Profitable Connections. The battlefield is Utagunga. And then the upgrade suite is 2 Force Illusion, 2 Force Meditation, 2 Lone Operative, 1 Second Chance. There's 2 Scrap Heaps in there as well. And then the event suite is 2 Beguile, 2 Easy Pickings, 1 Entangle, 2 Friends in Low, 2 Hidden Motive, 2 Hyperspace Jump, 1 Into the Crosshairs, 2 Overconfidence, 2 Pacify, 2 Rebel, 2 Scruffy Looking Nerf Herder, and 1 Vandalize. Now, there have been a bunch of iterations of this deck, and I've actually changed it a little bit since this tournament. But let me tell you, this thing mills like crazy. An average turn, I go through. I mean, both of their character dice mill a card each, so you go through 4 to 8 cards pretty much every round. There's tons of mitigation. There's a couple changes that I've been talking about. Like, for example, I definitely put in a second chance. I might cut into the crosshairs, but overall, I think that I personally think this is just a better iteration than the Leia Yoda version I've seen going around. Um, I don't know. What do you think? You've had a chance. You've had the pleasure of playing against it a couple of times. So
I've played against it. I've played against it a few times. I don't hate on Mill as much as some people, so I will play you when you
yeah,
run this,
yeah.
but it is gross. It does so much Mill. Like you with certain card combos, you can hit 10 plus cards in a round. That's a third of a deck.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about putting in or at least trying the what is it, clandestine
Clan-
operation,
Clandestine operations. I still don't know why you guys don't run that in that deck
Well, my
because
my initial thought was that it already chews the deck so fast. It's the same reason I didn't include strength through weakness. Like the deck already mills so quickly, I didn't think it was necessary. But at the same time, if I can get an extra 4 cards and speed up a round, it's definitely worth trying. So, um,
well, when you think about it, if you use that control to stop damage for a round, milling them around earlier
Sure.
will do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
I just,
Especially even like in the vehicle matchup, for example. Usually it's a pretty good matchup for mill in general, but the more rounds you go, vehicle decks are notorious for getting the most value out of a round because they have so many dice. So like if you can cut the game round, the game short a round, it's a huge benefit. So the other thing I want to talk about quick is the battlefield choice. I see a lot of people using things like Command Center with Ascension guns and was it Jedi Temple? Is that the one that you get to pick a or look at their hand and choose a card?
yeah. Well, no, that's Imperial
Imperial
Palace.
Palace, that's the one.
Yeah,
Um, my thought is most of the time with this deck, I'm playing relatively reactive. So I'm hanging back and I'm removing things. Because of that, I rarely claim. So I want a battlefield that will benefit me, but not benefit my opponent. It's the same reason that Pacify is such a good card in Mill, because I don't care if you have shields. I don't care if you heal damage. Like, that only benefits me. I can use it if I'm in a bind and I need to heal. But other than that, it's a battlefield that I feel comfortable if my opponent, or excuse me, if I end up with it, that I don't have to worry about it benefiting them. So, um, maybe I'm wrong to take that one, but I feel pretty confident in it after the playtesting I've done that it's a good choice. So I'm gonna test this. I don't know if I'm gonna bring it to Gen Con. In fact, that's one of the things I want to talk about is whether or not Mill in general can be tier one. There are just some inherent issues. I hear a lot of people talk about, timed games. It's easier to go to time, and obviously the tiebreakers are damage related, so that could cause issues. I don't really think that's a problem, at least not for this deck,
yeah,
because like this deck is not going to go to time. You're either going to mill them super quick and you win, or an aggro deck will burn you down before you can get there. Because at the end of the day, this deck only has 20 health. Um, but so I don't know if the time is a really good argument as to whether or not it can be a tier one deck. Now, the fact that there are some counters to mill, maybe that is something worth considering. What do you think? Do you think Mill is something that can go to a big event like Gen Con and take it down?
prior to this set, no, I
Yeah,
didn't think it was. Now with characters like Cassian and Leia, some of the events that have come out, some of the upgrades, I think it is much more viable.
yeah.
Like you were saying, like this deck mills quick.
Yes, it
Like
does.
there's no like, no, this will take all 35 minutes and you'll barely eke out. No, this, 8 cards around, that's dumb.
Yep.
It's like if you discard to reroll 3 times, that you lose the game.
Well,
Like,
I mean, if you're discarding, oh, you mean total, like the whole game?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like if you have to do that 3 times, you're in a bad
I thought you were
spot.
saying in a round. I'm like, if you're discarding three times in a round to play against this deck, you're doing it wrong. That's
Yeah, you are definitely doing it wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody in chat was asking about and scrap heap versus streetwise in this deck. Obviously, I've already kind of talked about how much I love streetwise in previous episodes. So when I first built this deck, I ran streetwise instead of scrap heap. But what I found was, at least in this particular case, scrap heap is just more flexible and consistent. Like, I can use that resource on anything instead of just yellow events. The nice side of easy picking or of streetwise is that I can do things like easy pickings with no resources. But I also find that having that extra resource has helped me do things like play a second chance or play a hyperspace jump. Well, actually, hyperspace jump would have worked with Streetwise too, but a lone operative or something along those lines. And the only downside to Scrap Heap is that it doesn't work when your opponent's out of cards in their deck. But at the same time, if your opponent's out of cards in their deck, you're probably in a pretty good spot. So I tested both versions, one with Scrap Heap, one with Streetwise for 10 or so, maybe more games each, and I found that Scrap Heap was the better choice for me personally with this deck. So that's probably what I'm going to stick with in that. Um, but you brought up a second ago um, people who, well, mostly we're talking about people who just don't like playing against Mill. So this is a problem I've run into a lot in our local scene and elsewhere, but there's this like stigma where people just don't like playing against Mill. There's all conversations about people complaining about it, how it's NPE, which if you don't know, NPE means negative player experience. So people complain that it's like no fun to play against, and people just when I sit down with Mill, sometimes I'll just get a groan from my opponent, and they don't even want to play me, which I found really frustrating. Like I understand, right? Because it's a different way to play the game, and a lot of people just aren't used to it. Like when you sit down across from a Mill deck, you have to completely change your mindset going to that game. You can't aggressively discard to reroll. You have to be careful about what removal you use. Oftentimes, it's not worth using a removal because they're going to discard the card anyway, and you might as well save the resource for other uses. Focus becomes much more important. And the number one mistake I see a lot of people make is you need to sometimes just settle for a subpar roll. A lot of aggro or just damage decks in general have a mindset of I need to do as much damage as possible. But that's not necessarily the case. If you get into a round where you do 4 or 5 damage and the rest of your dice are just showing resources or disrupts or shields, just resolve those. You'll get a whole another round to do that damage, and each card you discard is helping me get to my win condition. So I just, while I understand the frustration of a lot of people who don't know how to play against it, my thought is like you just need to learn to adapt to the new game type. Um, it's a different playstyle, but it's the same game. So it's just something that bothers me personally. Given someone who just likes playing Mill, I would like the I hope that one day the general perspective will change, especially in this set. Yes, Mill's become stronger, but it's also interactive. It's not like you sit down and you're like, well, I just lose, because that's definitely not the case. If anything, a lot of decks benefit from it because their character combos are always online. They can always spot a yellow or spot a red. They don't have to worry about a character dying and turning off some of their cards. Um, yeah, am I just ranting, or do you kind of see what I'm talking about?
Yes, you are ranting, but
I it's something that I enjoy, right? So it bothers me when people like I have people that literally don't want to play against me because I'm playing Mill, and I'm just like, come on, this is a deck I like to play. I want to practice it. It's frustrating.
I will admit that sometimes I don't want to play against it.
Yeah,
Normally, it's because I bust out a deck to try out for the first time, and I don't want to test it against Mill because I built it to test against the rest of the field, and I can't get a feel for the combos and how the deck works. But
yeah,
once I learn how the deck plays, I want to get those Mill matches in because I don't want to be blindsided at a tournament
right.
and have no concept of how to deal with the
Yeah.
deck.
See, that's what I was gonna say. I totally understand the combo thing because you want to learn how your deck works. I was going to say that well, you need to practice against Mill because Mill is part of the meta, but you're right. Like I understand wanting to kind of get a feel for a deck before you jump into that. That makes sense, especially given how my other favorite deck type is Thrawn.
Yeah.
So if you're testing a combo, I'm gonna ruin it for you.
Yeah, and I always tell you what the combo is beforehand, so
Right.
you
Well,
know
yeah, we're
exactly.
talking about our decks. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I try to sometimes just play as if I didn't know, but obviously it's difficult to do that
you
sometimes.
always know. You
Yeah.
call it every
Yeah.
time. It's yeah.
It's part of playing Thrawn, right? You got to know your opponent. All right, that's enough ranting about Mill. I just wanted to get that off my chest. Let's move on to the fun stuff. So, FFG released a article today, as I already mentioned, about the new set coming up called Across the Galaxy. Yeah, it's super cool looking. There's a lot of. I mean, they've only spoiled what 7 cards, I think it is, and they all look really fun. So, um, before I start going into the individual cards, there's a one thing I kind of want to discuss in terms of the timing of this announcement. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm super excited. The set looks awesome. It looks like a lot of fun. I can't wait. And I also like that they gave us a month this time in November so that we know exactly when it's coming, which is pretty nice to be able to
Yeah,
plan ahead. Um,
that's nice. They don't give us a quarter and then change the quarter.
yeah, right, right. Well, and just having a month helps on so many levels, right? You can plan events, you can tell your local store to order, you can do all of these things and just be ready for the launch, which I think is really important, and it helps new players get into the game when they can plan ahead, and continuing players plan their finances, whatever. But all that said, I think this was like a pretty suboptimal time to announce this set, and I say that because like we just got Way of the Force, right? everybody's super excited about new cards, trying out new decks. Nationals is coming up in a couple weeks. People are playtesting all that stuff. Like the hype is pretty high right now. It makes more sense to me to make an announcement like this, after the set's been out for a little while, maybe the hype's died down a little bit. You make the announcement, everybody gets all excited again, and then you can kind of build up spoilers up until the release. And you kind of spread it out, keep people interested in the game the whole time. Like right now, it feels like a lot of people are just like, "That's cool," but it's too soon. And so the other part of that is that I've seen people say things like, "This is happening too fast. I just spent a bunch of money. I'm not ready for a new set," because even though the set doesn't come out till November, in their minds, they're like, "A set just came out and they're talking about a new one already." You know, so yeah, that's just my
I,
spiel. I'm hoping that
your
maybe
your spiel is the same spiel that happened after Spirit of Rebellion when they announced
sure,
Empire War,
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
announced Legacy.
No,
They
I'm not
always
saying
do
it's a new thing.
it.
I just
It had no detriment on the game the last three times they did it. Why is it a
well,
problem now?
I mean, you don't. It's hard to quantify if it had a detriment on the game. Sure, the game is still doing fine. It's healthy. I'm just saying, from a marketing business perspective, it makes a lot more sense to me to spread out the hype, where people can just be excited for longer periods of time and not have it all happen at once.
Are you ready for my hot take on this one?
I'm always ready.
This set is boring. This current set, Way of the Force,
Whoa.
there are a few cool cards. Some of the characters are fun, but like the event suite, a lot of the upgrades, it's a bunch of meh for
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
I am ready for new stuff. Like I'm more excited by the spoiler article that we got today than I was of any of the spoiler articles for
Hmm.
Way of the Force.
Yeah. Wow. All right. That is a hot take. I mean, it's not the most exciting set that we've seen, right? There's no crazy new mechanics or anything like that. So I understand that there are a couple things that I like about the set for sure, and I'm still playtesting with a bunch of stuff. I just like having new sets in general, but I can see where you're coming from. I feel like a lot of the times I'm sitting down to make decks in this set, and I'm ending up using like 6 Way of the Force cards, and then a whole bunch of older
Six
sets.
six is generous.
Yeah, right. And so, I mean, I also understand not every set can like blow my mind and have crazy powerful cards, but I do feel like this is almost a setup set, right? The health curve seems to have gone up. There's uh, different mechanics they're introducing, so it feels like they're just kind of ramping up towards the new power level.
I
There's
think it's more they are laying the foundation for when the original block rotates out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah. You need some of these like bland slash basic cards to have in the card pool for when the first 3 sets rotate out. That makes sense. So anyway, just my thoughts on that. Let's get into the cards. So there are 7 new cards to talk about today. We're gonna kick it off with the man himself, Han Solo. You wanna explain to the people what Han Solo does?
Sure. All right. Han Solo is a independent hotshot, a yellow neutral character, 11 health. His cost is 1115 for elite. He has two ranged, one discard, one resource, and one special. His special reads deal 2 indirect damage to an opponent. And then you may reveal a card from your hand, a villain card from your hand, to force that opponent to lose 1 resource, or you may reveal a hero card from your hand to gain 1 resource. He's a character that also has the Scoundrel and Pilot subtitles. He's a legendary, and I think he is sweet.
Yeah, yeah,
The the price point, the health, the ability. I mean, he's got 3 2 damage sides, a discard, which I love, and a resource.
and one
And
of
if
those 2
you're
damage sides has an extra benefit.
exactly
Yeah,
now, I mean, and it's not discard like the draft Anakin.
right.
It's just reveal.
Yep.
So it's like, oh yeah, I've got this, doubt in my hand.
Yeah, yeah.
Remove a resource, or I just
He's
I
yeah,
he's super versatile.
yeah, for
Like
sure.
I dig him.
He's super interesting in draft too, like you already mentioned, right? Like you can adjust. or you can use him in villain or hero to different effect. And we've actually played around with creating our own quote unquote rivals set where you have a set of characters to choose from, and this seems like it would fit pretty well in that you can replace Ketsu or something like that if you wanted to switch up what you can draft from. He's a really cool ability. We were joking in our Discord earlier about how you can do both of them if you so happen to have a villain and hero card in your hand. Obviously, that makes sense in draft, but you could also run him with Bo-Katan and like be a villain weapon and
You could.
a little spice there. Um,
It's a little too spicy.
yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting at least. It's certainly not that's a deck that we can feature on our new Jakku Jankyard section
Yeah.
that we're gonna be. I'll talk about a little bit after we get through the spoilers, but we're gonna be doing a new Twitch segment called Jakku Jankyard. I'll get to that a little bit later. All right, that's Han Solo. He looks really cool, and I also it's interesting that he has a um, subtitle Scoundrel. I have a feeling there have been a lot of hints that they're going to be using the subtitles a lot more. Like the Trooper subtitle is one that comes to mind. There were some cards that reference it, but not many things take advantage of it. So I wonder if there's going to be cards coming up that play off of things like the Scoundrel or Pilot.
Um, I would hope there will be.
Yeah,
I'm thinking that might be heavier in like the next base set.
yeah, yeah. Makes sense. And then, so the next card I want to talk about is one that goes pretty much hand in hand with Han, and that is the Black Sun Blaster Pistol. It's a 3 resource yellow neutral upgrade. Its sides are 2 ranged, 1 disrupt, 1 resource, 2 specials, and a blank. And it says, while this upgrade is on a neutral character, it has redeploy. And then the special says deal 2 indirect damage to an opponent, then deal 1 damage to a character. So the specials are essentially 3 damage. Um,
Yeah.
I think this is a really cool upgrade. I like, its damage sides are essentially 2/3/3. The resource side is nice. The disrupt maybe isn't ideal, but I think disrupt in general is like an underused side. It comes in handy a lot more than people give it credit for. Obviously, you
Yeah.
don't really want to disrupt on a 3 cost upgrade.
Yeah. The 3 cost upgrade, you want to be using that for damage. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Um, you could use this in a Jabba 2 deck. It's got those specials.
I like that. Foreshadowing my Jakku Jankyard deck
That's right.
later.
Yep, exactly. Um, yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. You could use it on a number. It feels like it fits in a pretty decent amount of decks. There aren't a ton of neutral characters. What do we have? Hondo, um,
The
new
4
Han,
from the draft set,
sure, from the draft
Hondo.
set. Yep, and then I guess the 4 from the draft set. I was gonna say Jawa, but that's included in that. So, yeah, it seems like an interesting weapon. Uh, it's fun to try out. Let's move on to the next card, which is also neutral character related, and that is Indifferent. I don't know if do you have it pulled up. You wanna? It's a pretty straightforward one, but
Yeah, I mean, first off, I love the art on it. I don't
oh
really know
yeah,
how to pronounce this. I believe it's the Karazik fighter.
I always say Caraxes. I just say K for it.
Caraxix is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a complicated word. It's in X-Wing a lot, but it's a really cool looking ship. But this is just spot a neutral character to remove a die, 1 cost. Like,
Yep.
you've got a
Straightforward.
neutral character that's as generic as it gets.
Yeah.
But we need generic removal.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely. I mean,
I
anytime you can pay one to just remove a die, no, what's the word I'm looking for?
no
You know,
strings attached,
no
no
string. Yeah,
no
like there's no
catch. Yeah,
restrictions. Yeah, if you just remove a die, that's a good thing. That's why pin down is so good, for example. So, um, obviously you have to have a specific deck built for it, but if you have a neutral character, super strong card. Seems super strong. Let's move on. That was all right. This card, I'm gonna let you take the reins on also because I know you had said that you're excited about it. So let's talk about Tie Fighter.
all right, TIE Fighter. It is a 2 cost red villain support. The die sides on it read 1 ranged, a +2 modified ranged, 2 indirect, one disrupt, one resource, and one blank to support vehicle as the ambush keyword, and it says you can include up to 4 copies of this support in your deck.
Crazy.
I know. And then it also has the ability, after you play the support, search your deck for a copy of it, reveal it, and add it to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. So it is a card with a built-in tutor ability
Yep.
for its own card type. So I immediately think of the new Thrawn Snoke deck,
Oh
where you
yeah.
can get 8 resources first round easy.
I often do.
Like, not even hard to pull that
Oh
off.
man, starting a game with 4 of these in play would be
4 TIE fighters,
incredible.
4 supports on the board
Yeah,
in the first turn. It's dumb.
that's nuts. I love
And
it.
you've got the focus in the deck to fix it, so it's
Oh
like
yeah.
one range side and then 6 modified ranged. Ugh.
I love it. So,
But
so like one of the losses I had at the store championship this past weekend was my deck runs 12 supports, and I had a game where going into round 4, I had 2 supports on the board. I got one round 2 and one round 3, and then the other 10 of my supports were in the bottom 12 cards of my deck, right? And so that's obviously unfortunate. It's just kind of the nature of the beast with a deck like that because my characters can't really do any damage on their own. But something like this really helps with that problem because if I draw one of them, it's like drawing 4 of them. And it has ambush, so I can just play them all out at once. So I am super excited for this card. I've always, for some reason, liked villain vehicles more than hero vehicles. I don't really know why, but it's just something that I've just enjoyed playing more. So I really am excited to give this a try. 4 copies in a deck. The fact that you can just break the rules of the game is super interesting. It's a cool design space. I am super excited for this card, and I don't know if I've mentioned, but I like Thrawn, so I'm super excited to try it. Yeah. All right. So there's another card that they spoiled today that also kind of goes hand in hand with this one that I want to talk about next, and that is the triple laser turret. So this is a 2 cost upgrade, but it's not an upgrade like the one you're used to. It is called a mod. And so this is a new type of card that you attach to supports. This one in particular modifies a vehicle, which insinuates that there will be modifiers for other types of supports. We haven't seen any yet, but that would be my assumption. So the die is 2 ranged, 3 ranged for 1 resource, a +2 ranged, 2 indirect, and a shield. Which right off the bat, that seems really strong for a 2.
that is, if that were a real upgrade, that would be almost a 4 cost upgrade.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the caveat is you have to have a vehicle in play already, and it also has the text that reads, "While this die is in your pool, attached supports die cannot be removed by your opponents." So it kind of has that TIE pilot effect going on, where like it protects some of your other dice. This whole concept is super interesting to me because normal upgrades or weapons are attached to characters, and when that character dies, unless it has redeploy, it goes away. It's much more difficult, or at least much less common, to have ways to remove supports. So when this is played, it's probably sticking around. Um, so that
Well,
alone gives it a lot of value.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there's going to be a lot more vehicle hate in this new set as well. I
Sure.
mean, we've only got like 7 cards spoiled, so
Yeah.
there's still plenty of space for them to blow up vehicles.
Yeah. So but my thought there is if that's the case, and given that the vehicles are already strong, they seem to be getting stronger. I hope that if there is vehicle hate, it's in a way that the card isn't a dead draw in a non-vehicle matchup, because there are cards already out there that are really good at removing vehicles. Things like one that comes to mind is Sebulba always wins against a
Mhm.
vehicle matchup. That card is great. But are you really going to put it in your deck just hoping you run into a vehicle matchup? Because if you don't hit a vehicle matchup, it's kind of a dead card, right? So they've done this in other ways by having like alternate. I'm struggling to think of an example right now, but cards that like give you options to do multiple things. So I'm kind of hoping they kind of go down that route where you can either discard a support from play or do something else, just so that I can put something like that in my deck as a tech against vehicles but not have it be a dead card when I draw it.
Well, look, a rocket launcher is a good
Yeah,
example where
yep,
it had the special where you could either deal damage to each of your opponent's characters or remove a vehicle.
absolutely, yes. ATDP is a semi reasonable example as well that has that special that removes a support that costs 2 or less. So there are things like that that hopefully hopefully we just start seeing answers like more in that realm that I think that'll just lead to a healthier game. So I'm excited for this one. The possibilities are endless. I can't wait to see the rest of the spoilers. All right, the next one is also it makes a lot of sense to talk about coming after this because I think this card is super strong in vehicle decks. You want to explain the new event into exile?
Sure, this is a blue hero event. It's one cost, and it's play only if you spot two ready characters. And then the text on the card reads exhaust one of your characters. Then, until the end of the action phase, block all non indirect damage dealt to that character by your opponents. And then set this event aside so you can't like cycle it with Rebel or anything.
Sure.
I, as when I first looked at it, I was like, wow, that's broken. It's awesome. But exhausting a character, I mean, I'm waiting to see how it plays
Yeah.
in like day-to-day games.
Sure.
It's definitely an interesting design space because as these sets come out, indirect damage is becoming a lot more prevalent.
Yeah.
But if that's your only damage option, like certain decks, this card's useless, and in
Sure.
certain decks, it's amazing. Like
It's certainly a card you have to
yeah,
build for a specific deck. There's no question there, and like it only really makes sense in decks where your character's activation is important. It's more of a meat shield, like I said in a vehicle deck. A lot of times you'll have a character like I don't know Jar Jar or something where you don't necessarily care about his activation. He's there for things like Into the Garbage Chute anyway. So if you exhaust him, you can virtually I say virtually because it's not an actual guarantee. You can still die from things like moving damage through backup muscle or whatever. But virtually guarantee a whole nother round if you're playing against the damage deck. So things it's a super interesting, like you said, interesting design space. It's not going to fit in every deck. It doesn't. There's obviously a huge downside to it, and the other flip side of that is that it kind of forces all of the damage that round to go on your other character or characters, so you can, in a pinch, use it to just spread the damage out, maybe. But I think initially, based on the cards we know now, it makes the most sense in a vehicle deck where you don't care about your characters. Like, you get all your damage to your vehicles anyway, so you just exhaust a character you don't care about, and then do whatever you want for the rest of the round. So, interesting card. Curious to see where it'll find a place, but we'll have to see. And it's worth noting that it's a hero only card too. So,
right.
blue hero vehicles seems good.
Hero vehicles get all the fun
I
toys.
know. All right, let's move to the other blue hero card that we're going to talk about today. And this one is also super cool, and I'm going to let you take this one again because I want to talk about the next one. Go ahead and tell people about Kit Fisto.
Kit Fisto, the Shicho Master. He's a blue hero of 13-16 for elite, 11 health. His dice reads 1 melee, 2 melee, 3 melee for a resource, 2 focus, and a resource side. Then he also has the Jedi subtrait.
Yep.
And the text on his card reads before this character takes damage, you may remove one of his character or upgrade dice showing melee damage to block damage equal to the value showing on that die. I've already got visions of like crazy like 5 upgrade Kit Fisto, like 2 Shotos and an heirloom or
Jeez.
2,
Just
and
never die.
like yeah, I mean, like you gain 2 shields at the start of as soon as you activate, you can remove multiple dice to block all that damage. You just be the ultimate meat shield.
Yeah.
Like
And that 3-for-1 side, you could just you don't have a resource, fine, just remove it to block 3 damage.
yeah, I think He might be the most annoying character out of this new set. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that he might be the
We've
one.
seen 7 of 160 cards. We've already found the most annoying one.
I'm not guaranteeing it, but I'm saying he's in the running. He's
Yeah.
the most. Well, I don't know. Well, the next character we go over might also
See, I would
be
argue
in
the
the
next
running.
character prevents all of the annoying characters.
That's true, which annoys a portion of the playing audience.
That's
But
very
yeah,
true. Yeah. Um, so and then this card is like right up your alley too. Like you always love playing these kind of like tanky, shieldy, defensive decks like you R2P2 and
yeah.
Ray Ayla. So I have a feeling I'm going to be playtesting against this quite a bit when this set drops. It's
Well,
just
that's okay. You'll run mill and we'll care. So
yeah, go ahead, block all my
yeah,
damage. See if I care. You're right. You know me. All right, so let's go on to the last one. And this is a card that it's already spurred a lot of discussion in the various discords, and for a good reason. This is Iden Versio. Did I pronounce that right? I'm pretty sure it's Iden Versio.
I believe you did.
She's from the Battle. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of the name of the game? Battlefront, right?
Battlefront 2. Yeah.
Battlefront 2. Yes, that's right. So she is a red villain character. 12 for regular, 15 for elite. She has 12 health. She also has 2 subtitles, leader and trooper, and then her die sides are 2 ranged, 2 focus, 1 discard, 1 resource. So all of those are super useful. And then her ability is what makes her really interesting. It says, while one or more of this character's dice are in your pool, your opponent cannot take additional actions. So, ambush, no longer a thing. Force speed, no longer a thing. Sabine cries a little bit inside. All of these like crazy decks that tactical mastery, 3 steps ahead, all these things that kind of like cheat the action economy of the game. A lot of the people talk about how they just want the game to be back and forth like it initially was, all that kind of stuff. I didn't guarantees that. So I love it. She's at an interesting point cost, 12-15. I feel like there will be a lot of options to pair her with. I don't know off the top of my head who I want to try her with right away, but I mean she's just an all-around solid character. Good amount of health, good die sides, ability that like kind of evens the playing field.
Yeah.
There, yeah, there's a lot of things to try with her. I'm hoping that I pull her when I open my boxes from this because I am excited for her. What do you think?
Well, I mean, just her die, her point cost, and her 12 health, she's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
But then you add in that ability where it's like all those annoying decks that just being able to say to Sabine, it's like you can roll out. I hope you roll the best. You can't resolve them because you can't take that extra
yep,
action. Now I'm going to control all your dice. Like, oh, you hit 7 damage. Well, I'm going to best defense and get rid of those base
mm-hmm,
damage sides,
yep.
and you're doing nothing. Like
Now, you can still do things like quick draw. Like that's not an extra action. So quick draw is
that
a card that
is
lets you activate
right.
and resolve, but the ambush weapons into rolling in and activating does not work anymore. So it kind of just evens the playing field. Now, you also have to put this in a deck where you don't take extra actions. So you can't play tactical mastery in your deck because
Oh yeah,
oh,
you can.
never mind. It
It's
says your
your opponent.
opponents. Oh man, it's even
I would
better.
absolutely
Yeah.
abuse this.
Oh, absolutely. I can't believe I missed that. That's so much better. Oh, I'm sorry. How is your one action going? Let me take 3.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you enjoy your one action. Well, I'm going to spend these 3 resources and play 3 steps ahead. Let's see. I'm going to roll out here. Oh, I've got 2 focus on one of my Iden dice. I'm going to fix these 2 over here and
Yep.
deal 8 damage before you can respond. Oh, it feels so good. Oh, you say you can't do that? I'm
Well, of course, if you do
sorry.
that, you resolve all of her dice. Your opponent can take extra actions again.
At that point, you're fine with
Yeah,
it. You
yeah.
know,
I'm really curious to see. Obviously, it's so like we only seen 7 cards, so it's impossible to see what the meta would look like. But it'll be curious to see if she ends up with a place in it, just because it interferes with so many decks game plans. I feel like a card like this is just gonna has the potential to just change the game because a lot of the top tier decks just focus on abusing extra actions. And so it'll be really
Yeah.
interesting to see how that plays out.
I like the idea of this rewarding fair decks.
Hmm.
Like, because there aren't a
Yeah.
whole lot of them left.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. So, and it's a card that will be around for in standard for a number of sets. So like it'll affect the game for a long time if she ends up being a staple. So that is all of the individual cards that were spoiled. There was one thing that they also put in the article that I wanted to mention, and that is they put a little blurb at the beginning talking about the set, and they mentioned negative point plots.
I don't I don't like the idea of it.
No?
So
All right,
I've already been talking about this in the Discords. The game was already finely tuned and balanced.
sure.
Adding in a negative point cost plot, it either has to be very restrictive or very detrimental because
Yes.
I don't want Throncar back.
Yep.
I don't want, all of these crazy combos. It's like, man, if I only just have one extra point, I can run this broken
Yep. Well,
pairing. I
so
don't, I
I
don't want the
think,
game to break.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously the whole game is designed around that 30 points, right? So like giving you the ability to run these character combos that you couldn't otherwise. If I was a betting man, which spoiler alert, I am, I would say that the negative point plots are going to have much more severe penalties than their counterparts do on the normal plots. For
Oh,
example,
sure. Yeah.
like profitable connections, 3 points gives you an extra resource. I would say that if you wanted a the counterpart to that, where you start with one less resource, it would cost you like you'd only get like -1, maybe -2.
I would take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
To be able to play Throncar again and only have one resource round one, who
yeah.
cares?
Until your opponent plays blockade and you have no money. But I mean, obviously,
Oh no.
Throne Card's a bad example for that because they make a lot of money anyway. But I was just using that as like a kind of comparison point that if a plot were to give you the inverse um, penalty to a plot that already exists, I feel like it's going to be give you less points to return just because there are a lot more potential to break the game otherwise. Does that make sense?
That does make
But
sense.
I
And
mean,
our friend David, who's the godfather of Jank, is screaming Luminara. That's the reason he wants this negative plot.
yeah, that's that's a unique reason.
Yeah, it's like if I'm gonna find a use for it, I know. Not bring Strong Card back. I want to make Luminara good.
Yeah, I don't think there's any number of negative plots that would make Luminara good, but maybe I'm wrong.
If you subtracted 5 points from her cost, she'd be
Well,
broken amazing.
okay, fair, yeah. But like, if you're gonna subtract 5 points via a plot, I'm just gonna play something else broken and not play Luminara.
Yeah.
Now, if it was a plot that said only use this if you bring Luminara, sure. But then in that case, they might as well just do a balance of the force on Luminara.
But here's the thing. In other FFG games, they will release cards to fix characters
That
that
is
need
true.
balance.
Yep. Although,
I mean, I would not like that for Destiny,
no,
but if they released a plot that was like, you get 3 extra character points to build a deck with Luminara.
yeah.
Like,
I think the
eh,
direction that they're headed is more digital than that. So like that's true in games like X-Wing and Imperial Assault, where they'll release these upgrade cards that you can bring with your list that say subtract this many points if you bring this exact ship or this exact character or whatever. But they're also moving in 2.0 X-Wing to like where all the point values are on the app. I wonder if something like that is happening with Destiny. They mentioned something about big plans for I think it was set 10, which is what 4 sets away or something like that. Um, but I think that makes a lot more sense than having to release eroded cards. It avoids confusion. Like we had somebody just last week who was playing a game at our local shop, and he put down a vibro knife and he tried to do like 9 unblockable damage, and we had to be like, actually, no, that's not how that works. It's just the vibro knife die now, and so I feel like that, of course, that errata wouldn't be solved by the point thing. But it just that's that type of solution solves a lot more of those issues that's difficult in a physical printed card game, right? So I have a feeling that's kind of the direction they're going to go. So negative point plots has potential to break the game. I'm sure it's been well thought out and tested, but I'm super curious to see what effect it has and what options there are with it because it opens up a ton of different character building opportunities. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna like freak out about it yet
yeah,
because all they did was give a little like one sentence blurb. So
right,
if it's something reasonable, great.
yeah,
But if it's just like a blanket, you start with one less resource, one off your character point totals, then no, I'm not happy about that.
yeah. And I'm also not happy about that because that means they probably would nerf Unkar again.
Yeah, that bump on card back up to 15. Yeah.
Yeah, um, yeah. So we'll see what happens there. I'm especially I mentioned Unkar because I'm going to play Unkar in our Janku Jankyard right after the show ends. So stick around, see some shenanigans. So let's see. Is there anything else that I missed in the article we want to talk about before we wrap things up?
I just want to once applaud FFG for giving a month release date. I think that's the reason they dropped this article. They needed
Yeah,
to build up some goodwill because, good God, the past couple of sets have been awful.
yeah, yeah. It's been super frustrating for sure.
Set, give a ballpark range, and then when we get
Yeah,
a little closer, just say, all right, November 15th, boom, set's coming out.
yeah, yeah. That's been the number one complaint players, of course, but also our local shop. They're like, we don't know when to order things because we don't know when the set's going to come out, right? And just giving them a ballpark like that will help me as a person who tries to organize events to grow the community. I think that'll help a lot. So here's hoping that they figured out all their logistics issues and we can, you know, stay on track. And if we're getting months every set, like a month that we know ahead of time, be a huge boon to the game. Let's hope.
Say, I'm not even asking for a day, just a month.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yep. Absolutely. So cool. So that was a lot of stuff. I'm super excited. I'm not even like begun to parse this meta, and I'm already excited for the next one. But at the same time, I need to focus on Gen Con, so I'll be doing a lot of play testing with a bunch of random stuff from Way of the Force until then. So I think that's pretty much it for this episode. Thanks again for watching and listening, of course. Um, if you like our content, please do us a favor and go over and give us a review on iTunes. I want to give a shout out to Chris Crazy Keys, I think was the username. Thank you very much for your review on iTunes. It really helps people find the podcast. It means a lot to us. And of course, I mentioned earlier, we are now on Patreon, so you can find us over at patreon.com/Sons of Mandalore. We have a lot of really cool exclusives for our Patreon subscribers. Exclusive videos, some playtesting stuff. We're going to start doing a deck of the week segment every week, where we talk about a deck. We'll break down the deck list itself, talk a little bit about its matchups, and we'll also be recording some playtesting videos with that deck to kind of get a feel for how it fits in the meta. We'll be giving a lot of that out to our Patreon subscribers. Um, what else? Let's see. Oh, also, something worth noting is that we've decided this week to move towards a consistent weekly schedule. So we are going to be recording a new episode every Wednesday at this time. So you can look forward to seeing that every week instead of the kind of semi-weekly sporadic thing we've been doing while we were getting our feet wet. So I'm really excited to kind of be on a schedule and just be talking more about the game that we love. So look forward to that. Um, let's see. Anything else? Stick around for the Jakku Jankyard. If
Chaku
you're,
Junkyard.
yeah, I'll just go ahead and spoil it now. We're going to be playing two ridiculous decks. I am playing Unkar and two TIE pilots, and you're playing. I know you're playing Jabba too. Who did you decide to bring as your other character?
Yeah, I'm doing a Tickle Jabba, the new Jabba 2 that looks like Bib Fortuna just finished tickling him. And Kylo
That's
1.
exactly what's happening in that picture.
I, Tell me it doesn't look like that. Jabba's got a big smile on his face. Bib's right
He's got
behind
his
him with his
hands up
hands
and
all like.
yeah, I love it.
And yes, the alternate title is What in the Hut. So
All right, that's a strong contender too. I like it. Yeah. And who did you say you're bringing with it?
Kylo won.
Kylo 1.
He's got a
Yeah,
special side. That's all that matters.
that's jank. I'll allow it. Cool. All right, well, that's going to do it for the show. Thank you again for tuning in. We hope you had a good time. And we will see you all next week.
Yep. See you guys.